For decades, right, the United States has been seen as the world's undisputed superpower. But then, in just a few short weeks, a whole series of pretty stunning events started to challenge that idea, raising a really fundamental question. Is the myth of American invincibility starting to crack? Okay, let's just dive into this. On one side, you've got the United States, which spends almost $1 trillion a year on its military. It has more than 13,000 aircraft and, arguably the most powerful navy in history. Then, on the other side, you've got Iran. It's a regional power, sure, but its defense budget is less than 2% of America's. We're talking about a nation that's been hobbled by years and years of sanctions. And this is where it gets really weird. Despite this overwhelming technological and financial advantage, it's the United States that's reportedly asking for a pause in the fighting. And it's a call that, according to the source material, Iran is just flat out rejecting. So how on earth did we get to this point? Well, the first pillar of American power to really be tested was its absolute control of the skies, a dominance built around the most advanced fighter jets ever created. So let's talk about the cost of just one of these things. A single F-35 fighter jet runs about $100 million. This thing is the absolute crown jewel of the U.S. Air Force, and it's the result of a development program that cost over $1 trillion. Its whole identity is built around one single feature: stealth. Yeah, people were really proud of its invisibility. In fact, President Trump himself made this very claim just hours before something pretty unbelievable happened. And then, boom, Iran releases a video claiming a direct hit on an F-35 stealth fighter. I mean, this sent shockwaves everywhere. The U.S. did later acknowledge that an F-35 was damaged and had to make an emergency landing, but for the very first time, the invisible jet had been hit in a war zone. So how in the world did they pull that off? Well, it wasn't with some secret, super advanced radar. The source suggests it was just smart thinking. Instead of looking for the jet with radio waves, they used infrared sensors to pick up the intense heat blasting from its engine. Once they had a lock, they allegedly just fired a modified 30-year-old Russian missile. It's a perfect example of low-tech ingenuity beating high-tech stealth. And look, this wasn't just a one-off thing. It was part of a bigger pattern. It wasn't just the F-35. The U.S. also reportedly lost 12 MQ-9 Reaper drones, worth around $200 million in just 3 weeks. And even before that, 3 F-15s had also been lost, though that was officially blamed on friendly fire. Critics had been saying for a long time that these super expensive machines just weren't cut out for a real fight. Okay, so that's what was happening in the sky. But the story doesn't end there. Let's head out to sea, because the U.S. Navy, the ultimate symbol of America's global power, was about to face its own set of pretty humbling challenges. To show it meant business, the U.S. sent its newest and most expensive aircraft carrier to the region, the USS Gerald R. Ford. We're talking about a $13 billion warship. This thing is a literal floating fortress. It carries more air power than many entire countries have. And here is the crazy twist. This marvel of modern engineering wasn't taken out by an enemy missile or torpedo. It was a fire in the laundry room. You can't make this stuff up. A fire that apparently burned for 30 hours, forced the entire ship back to port, and took it completely off the front line. All right, next up, I want you to just look at this number, 1,000 kilometers. Let that sink in for a second. This single number tells a huge part of the story out at sea. Because that's how far America's second aircraft carrier in the region, the USS Abraham Lincoln, was apparently forced to pull back from the Iranian coast. According to some of the reports cited in the source, the constant threat from Iran's cheap little drones and missiles just made it way too dangerous to get any closer. The most powerful navy in the world was basically being kept at arm's length. So, with its air power and its naval forces getting seriously challenged, you'd think America could fall back on its defensive shield, right? Its advanced missile defense systems? Well, Iran had a plan for that too. They weren't just going after the sword, they started attacking the shield itself. This thing, the ANFPS-132, think of it as America's all-seeing eye in the Middle East. It's a long-range radar that could scan an area of 5,000 kilometers for any incoming threats. It was the absolute cornerstone of U.S. surveillance for the whole region. And it cost a fortune. We're talking over $1 billion for this single piece of equipment. You just can't replace something like that easily. It provides that crucial early warning that any missile defense system needs to actually work. And according to the source, Iran destroyed it. Just like that. Poof. America was effectively blinded in the region, leaving its bases and its allies way more vulnerable. All of a sudden, those calls for a pause in the fighting start to make a lot more sense, don't they? So all of this, it brings us to the final and maybe the most crucial piece of the whole puzzle. The argument here isn't that American tech is bad, it's that the American strategy was fundamentally broken. And when you look at the two strategies side by side, it's pretty stark. The source material paints this picture of Iran as being focused, disciplined, with really clear goals, using low-cost stuff with smart thinking. And then on the other side, you have the U.S. command under President Trump, which is described as kind of all over the place, with constantly shifting goals and an approach that relied way too much on its expensive, complicated tech. You know, it really all boils down to that old saying. You can have the most advanced weapons in the world, the sharpest sword you can imagine, but they're pretty much useless if the strategy behind them is a mess and you don't have a clear goal. The tech is only part of the story. Ultimately, what this all leaves us with is a really provocative question for the future. In this age of asymmetric warfare, is a clever, low-cost strategy actually becoming more valuable than super expensive, high-tech hardware? It's a question that military planners all over the world are now being forced to think about.